What is art? Well, that is a question that is beyond the scope of this video, but I will be divulging what I learned from my personal practice in visual arts, dance, and music. Speaking of music, this is my work you're hearing on the piano. It's the first movement of Beethoven's Piano Sonata No. 14, a piece I've always found quite beautiful and worth the effort of learning the piano. However, this short intro is all I managed to learn in time, and the rest is quite difficult for a beginner. This is me learning the movement on a pre-loved Casio keyboard I bought from an op shop. It caught my eye because it had these handy stickers that helped me to learn the positions of the keys. Unfortunately, the sound would only play through headphones, so I had to improvise. Once I realized that the full movement was beyond 5 hours of practice, I picked up the ukulele as well. My participation in this subject's tutorials encouraged me to dust off this little thing that I constructed myself a couple years ago. I found that there are plenty of easy ukulele tutorials to follow on YouTube. Learning not one but two new instruments was daunting at first, but finally getting those notes right was a fulfilling achievement, and I feel as though this process will benefit my future practice since I better understand how to approach musical training, which relates to Standard 2 of the Australian Professional Standards for Teachers. While we're on the topic of the AITSL standards, I also understand now that professional learning doesn't have to be a dull task, at least not for creative arts anyway. And in the case of music, there are extensive benefits to be passed on to students with the right amount of encouragement, since Roman Caballero and others in 2022 linked the act of learning an instrument to improved cognitive skills in children. As you may or may not be able to tell from my spectacular camera work and video editing, I am somewhat familiar with photography and videography. So I thought about taking photos for my 5 hours of visual arts practice. But I decided that photography was too familiar and would not leave enough room for meaningful personal growth. As Jacobs and Poley note, arts education ought to be enjoyable, but also meaningfully challenging. So instead I enlisted help from my boyfriend, who performed highest in visual arts for the HSC. Exploiting his stash of art supplies, we started with some sketching techniques. My initial attempts were not great, but here you can see me attempting, with lots of guidance, a self-portrait. I thought sketching would be an easy task, but when you aim for realism in your artwork, I discovered that there is a lot of patience and attention to detail required. I decided next that I should try to get in touch with my artistic roots in primary school, dabbling in watercolors and textures without much external instruction. Although these premium markers are far removed from their classroom counterparts, I felt it was essential to recapture this youthful creativity in order to remind myself of the enjoyment felt by students who aren't aiming for a serious recreation, but are instead wanting to express themselves on the page. And I realized that this is one of the most empowering aspects of visual arts. And now we come to dance.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting.
Historically, I've always been allergic to dancing. Awkward moving my body, having to improvise, keeping up with the beat. No thank you, not for me. Yet, it's a part of primary creative arts. I knew I had to face my fears sooner or later. Luckily, my boyfriend is as skilled a dancer as he is an artist. He's even performed at the National Institute of Dramatic Art for Waikikiri, the National Story Dance Festival. Here you can see us warming up. Here I am practicing some basic moves from some friendly YouTube videos just to get me more comfortable moving my body. And here's a quick montage from my 5 hours of practice. As you can see, I spent most of my time learning a version of the time warp.
It's just a jump to the left.
I did the time warp again and again and again. And while I clearly wasn't going to win any awards, I was at least enjoying myself. Dancing isn't always about getting the moves perfectly right. It's mostly about having fun. And I think that's especially true for a primary school setting. It's not about making sure everyone's doing the right moves. It's about making sure everyone's having fun and is engaged in their learning. I think this is what Elton, Chalcraft and Mills refer to as an enjoyable challenge, which elicits pride and engagement in educational contexts. With my time spent dancing in front of a camera came a newfound confidence in my less than perfect abilities, reaffirming for me that the beauty of the creative arts lies in the joy of expression and the personal growth it brings.
It's just a jump to the left. With your hands on your hips.